Yep, that's the quarter life crisis. I'm now 25, working as a doctor in New Zealand. Things are going swimmingly, but do you ever feel like you're doubting whether anything that you're doing is actually right at all? And for a matter of fact, I'm actually filming in the car because I've just finished a very long night shift. I still can't get back to sleep. My boyfriend's asleep, so I'm filming in the car. I've realized that I'm not the only one that's feeling this way. All my friends are sort of hitting this milestone, stopping and looking at themselves out and think, this is not what I wanted. That's when you start to question, what have I done? What am I doing? Am I happy? Is this the path that I wanted to take? Honestly, looking back at my early 20s, there is a lot of bittersweet regret. I really wish that looking back, someone would have told me this advice that I am going to tell you now. The first thing that I wish I told my younger self was go and explore new things. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and just go out there and try new things. Anything like taking up a new hobby or sport, traveling, learning a new culture, meeting new people. Anything that means that you're coming out of your little shell and trying things that you don't normally do. Because I felt like in my early 20s, I was always in the library. I was either in the library or in my room or in a study room, really just focusing on my academics. In hindsight, you know, we always have hindsight 2020, but in hindsight that was actually really unnecessary and I didn't feel like I really enjoyed university. I was just stuck in my own little world. I wish I'd done a bit more, like I'd gone out there, meet more people, attend parties and see what that is all like before I enter adulthood and start working, because now looking back I feel like I've missed out on those opportunities for growth. The reason why exploring yourself in your early 20s is really important is, especially for people like me, I'm the type of person who I just don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't know what I enjoy. If there is work, I will do it because it needs to get done, but doesn't mean that I feel fulfilled at all at the end of the day when I've ticked all the boxes. By trying out new things, you really know whether or not you enjoy the thing that you do, and that is a way that you can find passion. So if you don't know what makes you happy, just go out there and try new things. It's not gonna hurt, and even if it does, it doesn't really have much consequences. No one really cares. So do it for yourself, and it's really great for learning about yourself. You will have a lot more opportunities to meet new people and make new connections, and that's all really key for growth. The second thing that I wish someone told me a lot earlier when I was in my early 20s is to be more open-minded and take more risk. This one is really important because if you're into MBTIs, which I know a lot of people are, and if you know that you're the SJ type, which is like the very conservative guardian types, I'm an ESTJ, and I know that the key to this personality is that you love routines, you love looking back at what's happened before, knowing that it works in the past, so therefore you only stick to those things that work, and feeling more adverse to trying new things and new experiences. That means that you're not very flexible as a person and you're not very receptive to new ideas, and I totally get that. But in your early 20s, it's really important that you stay open-minded, that you're more receptive to new ideas, because that is how you grow as a person. It really expands your knowledge of how things work, and open your mind to know that your way is not the highway. There are just so many ways of doing things, and one could be better than the other, sure, but being more receptive to it, you're not discounting other people's ideas and sticking to your own, because that really doesn't serve you. I used to think that my way of thinking is like the only correct way, and other people are just stupid, wasting time, trying new things. Like, why would you do that when you know that this one way already works? It's really time efficient. Until I met my current boyfriend, and he challenged the crap out of my current mindset and made me realize that I've rejected or missed out on a lot of opportunities to have new ideas, and being able to accommodate other people, really see things from their point of view and being more empathetic. The third thing that I wish someone told me about was this thing called it's just a phase mindset. I'm sure there's a better way of wording it, but what this means is that you've got this mindset that anything is temporary and anything will pass, including the positive and of course the negatives. This sort of mindset is great because it really gives you this sort of bird's eye view approach, taking yourself outside of the emotional distress in the situation that you're in and being able to see exactly what's happening. And knowing that it's temporary means that you're able to move on from things a lot quicker. This is really a game change for me, and I know for a fact that it is definitely easier said than done when you're in that situation, when you're feeling really distressed. It's easy for other people to say, snap out of it. Why are you dwelling on things that don't matter when it's only this small in the scheme of things, right? I find myself getting stuck in those situations a lot, and I always look back in hindsight and I'm like, oh, why am I feeling that way? That was kind of ridiculous. I found a really good way for myself when I am in those sort of situations. What I do is that I need to be alone. I find a piece of paper and I put a big dot in the middle, and then I draw a straight line through that dot, a very long line. I visualize that that dot is my current point in time of how I feel, and the start of the line is when I was born and the end of the line is when I die. It really zooms out and gives you a good perspective of really how minute and how tiny this thing is in comparison to what's happened in the past and what is to happen. Number 4 is to understand a bit more about finances and investment. Of course, it's all about money, money, money. It'll just be a lie if you said that money wasn't important. And it's especially important to learn about money early on, so then you can build your wealth a lot earlier and learn about compounding interest ahead of other people. Because my parents don't live in New Zealand, they don't really have a good grasp of the policies in New Zealand and what we need to do in order to get ourselves on a good footing for a first home in New Zealand anyway. So I also wish that someone told me that putting all your money in the bank is not the way to make money, and you're not going to get rich from putting your money into savings, because look at the interest rates. I wish someone had told me about index funds, a lot more about ETFs. Those things are good to start off with because it isn't like individual stocks where it's very high risk, because with index funds and ETFs, someone is already thinking of like the top 50 or top 100 stocks that already do well, and by putting money in early consistently while you're young, you are more likely to have a chance at compounding interest and getting a real benefit from that. I wouldn't personally recommend looking into individual stocks just yet when you're in your early 20s, unless there is something that you truly believe is going to do well, or you're working in the industry and you found that the stock is popping off. You do a lot of research as well to look at the background and whatnot before investing in it. I have only invested in one individual stock, which is this ultrasound company that I know is something that I truly believe in will do well, because the medical field is lacking in, and it is meeting demands, I guess. And upon researching about it, somehow I found out that Elon Musk is actually sending this device with the astronauts to Mars or something like that. You can have a wee read about it. So I firmly believed in it. I put money into it and it was doing well. That was how I bought my first MacBook Pro. So investing in stocks is risky, but if they're calculated risks, then that's great, because in your early 20s, you really don't have that much to lose anyway. And I would see it as a learning lesson. I think you will just get a lot out of trying investments and putting yourself out there. Like I said, because my parents don't live in New Zealand, they live in Malaysia, I found that this financial side of things learning it was a bit hard for me, which leads to my next advice, which is read more or listen more. So I wish that in my early 20s I wasn't just focusing a lot of my time reading textbooks, because looking back now, I wasn't really using a lot of the things that I was learning in textbooks in real life anyway. Yeah, I would have benefited myself a lot more if I were to read, self-help books, financial books, and help myself get ahead, because those are things that I find really hard talking to my Asian parents about it. Self-care, relationships and things, they're sort of taboo topic, and mental health is not really a thing in Asia if you don't already know. So yeah, I wish that I could read more books when I was younger. These are the books that I would have recommended to my early 20s self. These are The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, and How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and also Rich Dad, Poor Dad by, I can't remember his name and it's not on my phone. But I also so wish that I found podcasts a lot earlier. 2022 was a life-changing year when I started listening to the Jay Shetty podcast on Life on Purpose. Is that what it's called? Oh, it's just called On Purpose with Jay Shetty. It's just the best podcast ever for self-development, for all sorts of topics that your parents don't really talk to you about, and a really easy listen. There's just not a lot of commitment. Like if you read a book, you might have to take like a few weeks to finish a book, but a podcast is short, succinct. It's a really good introduction to certain topics, and it only takes like 20 minutes or an hour of your time. And if you're really interested, you'd go and research more. So I think podcasts are the way to go. Number 6, this is a prickly one. You do not have to be liked by everyone. I really wish I told myself that in my early 20s, because instead of focusing on having everyone like you, in your early 20s, it's really that prime time where you should be finding yourself, finding your values, finding your purpose. If people don't fit in those goals, then really they should be the one who are cut out of your life, and not you trying to compromise yourself in order to fit in with them, if you know what I mean. I remember in my 4th and 5th year of medical school, probably just a couple of years ago when I was 20, I just remember finishing class at the end of the day and feeling so drained and upset. I was constantly trying to get people to like me, putting myself out there and trying to connect with people who I have nothing in common with except for medical school. And our hobbies did not align, our interests did not align. They're just not my type of people, but I forced myself to try to belong. That feeling of wanting to be liked and wanting to belong was so strong. I don't fault myself for putting myself out there to connect with people, because I see that as a challenge, as a way of improving myself. But I am upset looking back at myself for beating myself up so much that when I was invited to an event, like that was the win. When someone forgot to ask me out, I would feel so depressed that I didn't belong. Yeah, now thinking back, I felt like my feelings of defeat was just such an energy waster. I could have done so much more in that time, and now I do realize that there are just some people who you meet and they're not going to like you, because even those really nice people, the people who are super popular, the people that I look up to, there's always going to be people who hate on them. Like God, right? Like Jesus. People hate on Jesus. What's his name? Satan hates Jesus. You get my point. Point number 7 is choose carefully who you let into your inner circle. It's really important, especially in your early 20s, that you are surrounded by people that you want to become. It's just a saying, but I think that it's very true that you are the average 5 people that you hang out with. The people that you choose to hang out with, especially during this point in your life, has a huge impact in how you think and has a huge impact on your future as well. I remember early in high school when I first moved to New Zealand, in year 9 I think, I was with a certain group of friends who I still really treasure our memories. Every lunchtime we would just go to the music room and mess around, and I didn't play any instruments then, so I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And after schools we'll go to each other's house and play games. And then in year 10 I moved classes, surrounded by kids who are a lot more academic, who cared a lot about their grades, and I immediately identified that is what I want. I consciously made that decision that I am going to change my group of friends. I did feel really bad, but I knew that in order to start building my CV, I was going to surround myself with people who want to do the same, because if I were to do that with the group of people that I was hanging out with in year 9, I would feel even more guilty. Instead of playing around, I would be joining extracurricular activities, joining clubs, so that I building a future that I want. It's just important to know that at different times of your life, some things serve you at the time and some things don't anymore, and it is okay to move on without having bad feelings. And I really treasured the time that I did have with my friends in year 9. Those were unforgettable memories that I'll keep with myself forever. Just that you need to be mindful about the relationships and the friendships that you are making, because those are what are going to influence you in your future. And if you early on realize that people that you you are hanging out with and what they do are not in alignment with your purpose and your values and your goals, you don't have to cut them out. It's a matter of fact of not seeing them very, very regularly and not seeing them as close friends, but just sort of casual contacts that you keep around in your circle. Right, so those are the seven things that I wish someone had told me about in my early 20s. So these advice are really true to heart, and those are what I really wish little Eunice could hear. Things would have been quite different, but it's always okay to make changes now and pivot. Yeah, I hope these tips were somewhat helpful. Let me know if you'd like to hear more videos like this and comment below. Thanks guys, see you later.